Hello guys, and welcome once again to Teen Talks. You know, these days I have received a lot of messages from teenagers sharing to me their frustration and anxiety with the new school setup. It seems that the adjustment is a real challenge for many of you. So because God knows what you need and He wants to provide it, today I want to share with you some advice on how not only to survive but to thrive in this new school setup. The advice that I will be sharing with you today comes from an acronym that is TEENS, and also from the passage of Luke 2:41-52, which shows Jesus in his teenage years deciding to stay in the temple. I'm sure that you are familiar with the passage. It says that when Jesus was 12 years old, he went to Jerusalem with his parents, but when it was time to go back home, he decided to stay behind because he wanted to learn more about God. His parents were super worried until they found him talking with the teachers of the law in the temple. So what can we learn from Jesus in this passage? What can he teach us for the new school setup? So here we have our acronym, and we start with letter T, which is time management. Time management has a lot to do with being realistic and learning how to prioritize. First things first. I would suggest that you set a goal for this new school year that is realistic within the possibilities of the new normal. And don't stress yourselves with things that are unachievable. And having that goal in mind, you can make a plan at the beginning of the day and sort out all the things that you need to do for that day. Among these things, try to distinguish which is your priority number one, which is the most important and urgent, and set a certain time in the day in which you will do it. You can continue assigning time for all the less important things, but again, be realistic. Sometimes we put so many things in a day that's why we end up frustrated because it's not possible. And don't forget to give time for take creative breaks. For example, dancing or drawing or gardening or spending time with your pet. These things should also be prioritized because they help us take care of ourselves. When I see Jesus in this passage of Luke 2, I think that it was not improvised, that he really had a plan, that he really had in his mind what he was going to do, where he was going to go, and he went for it. Enough for letter T, now let's move for letter E, which is empower self. You know, even if it is challenging, this pandemic with the new school setup is a precious opportunity to empower yourself. To learn to not just go with the flow of things, but practice discipline and take the lead in building your own future. If you only look to the situation with new eyes, this can be a very precious time for you to grow in so many ways, because learning is not limited to academic matters. All that you are learning this time counts. It's valuable. Some of you have learned to cook, others are practicing your favorite sport and you are mastering it. Or perhaps you're helping your parents in gardening, you have perfected your household chores technique. If you value this, you will discover that time is not wasted and that this is not such a terrible time after all. Jesus took advantage of the place and the time where he was in order to learn something new. He knew that there in Jerusalem he had the opportunity to talk with the best teachers of the law and ask them all the questions he wanted. Jesus was a protagonist in his own education. He found ways to empower himself and to develop a new skill. How about you? What new skills have you discovered this time? What opportunities for growth have you discovered in yourself in this new situation? We go back to our acronym, which is TEENS, right? And now we go to our next letter E, which is all empathize with our parents, siblings, and friends. To empathize is no other thing than to put yourself in the place of the other, to put yourself in the shoes of the other. And probably this is the most important lesson that the passage of Luke gives to us. Mary and Joseph were looking desperately for Jesus until they found him in the temple. And Mary expressed her feelings to her son. We were looking for you. Desperately. And of course, at the beginning, Jesus didn't understand his mother and he just said, "Don't you know that I should be in my Father's house?" But later, he was able to see that his actions had a consequence in his parents. that his parents had feelings too, so he was able to put himself in the place of Mary and Joseph, empathize with them, and he decided to go back home and be obedient to them. So what can we learn from Jesus with this attitude of being empathetic? We can learn the importance of looking around and see how others are. The importance of realizing that after all, you are not the center of the world. That the world is not only revolving around your own needs, but other people also count. People living around you are also affected by this situation. Do you notice them? Do you know how your father feels, how your mother is taking this situation? Do you know that they also worry? Do you notice how they are struggling? So if, like Jesus, we are able to see a little bit around us and the consequence of our choices, then we will be able to put the best of us in order to make the situation lighter for all of them. If you see that you are in this together with your parents, with your siblings, with your friends, that they are also experiencing difficulties, then you get your share with more responsibility and with the best attitude possible to make life easier for all. Letter N stands for non-negotiables. This new setup requires to make a commitment with yourself and to set your non-negotiables. It's like making a solemn promise to yourself that you will respect certain rules that you yourself will choose in order to walk towards your goal. What can these rules be? It's up to you, but for example, I will not check my social media during my study time, or no to staying late at night watching videos on weekdays. What is important is that you discover what works for you and that you are faithful to it. Remember, this is your path and no one else can walk it for you. So I don't know if you're still watching, but if you are still there, perhaps you are thinking, this is easier said than done. Yes, guys. Time management, empowering of self, empathizing with our parents, non-negotiables need something else, which is letter S, self-determination. Self-determination is the capacity to make each little choice count in order to go towards your goal. That's why without having your goal or your dream in mind, it is very easy to be carried away by whatever comes during the day. Oh, I will check YouTube, oh yes, I will update my Facebook, and then you end up wasting all your afternoon, which was supposed to be for your homework. Jesus, as a teenager, knew what was his goal. With 12 years old, he knew that he wanted to spread the love of the Father, and that for that he needed formation, he needed to learn. So, thinking on that goal, he decided to put the means to stay in Jerusalem. Is the idea that came to him. He made his plan, he went for it. And even if later he had to make adjustments and go back to Nazareth with his parents, he knew what his goal was and he practiced being the protagonist in his own formation. And he is challenging us today to do the same. In the description of the video, you will find a summary of what I shared in this video, as well as the passage of Luke 2 for your time of prayer if you wish to stay in silence. Remember, achieving your big dream depends on your faithfulness to the little goals of today. Until next time, adios!